Steve is the president of LifeGate. When you walk out of here, very conveniently, he has a stand, LifeGate Worldwide. He worked with us in preparation, and we're eternally thankful for him walking us through the preparatory stages before we started church planting. Oh, well, you want to see what? I didn't have more hair, but I looked a little bit better. So here's Steve. This ugly man is me. It hasn't, age hasn't improved anything. But the cool thing is, out of this group, most of the men you see here actually planted churches. So, how it all began? We had a burden. We saw a need for new churches. We heard about it. We need new churches. Now, what are you going to do? You can either keep on whining and complaining how bad it is, or start doing something about it. So we started the workshops. We invited Steve. That's how the whole thing started. We just wanted to know about church planting. Didn't know, like I said, I didn't know at that time I was going to be the first one out of that group to plant, but we trust God's leading in those things. Teams formed. Team is, I said it initially and I mean it, it's all about team. If you don't have a team, you have nothing. You have nothing. Preparation started, planning started, lots of preparation. I tell you right now, and I'll keep on repeating, lots of people, they want to step into this. They wake up one morning, think, it'd be cool to start a church, and they don't plan and they don't prepare. And I can understand, but it's foolish. It's called building a church. If you build a house, you don't just start with nothing and think, it's going to turn out okay. So planning and preparing is essential. In this whole process, those teams that formed were recognized by the churches that we were part of. And we were sent out by the churches because churches plant churches. This might sound very simple, and it is, and it's very biblical, but for whatever reason, it is quite often very effectively ignored. Churches plant churches. And the churches were planted, and God has blessed it. Seriously. I mean, it's not because of us. It's not because of the preparation. It's because of the grace of God. All the honor belongs to Him. He's the giver of all good things. And I've been a TMS grad, so I had Greek and I exegeted all very deeply. You know what all means? All. That's pretty deep, huh? You really got to go to seminary to figure that one out. So now we started here 2013, okay, this. Our church was planted 2015. So where are we at now? Now we're in a classic 2 Timothy 2:2 stage. Who knows what 2 Timothy 2:2 says? Yeah. Yeah, I'm a firm believer of learning Bible verses by heart, not just Sunday school kids, even us adults, okay? It's good, it's important. Okay, so Paul taught it to Timothy, so he would teach it to other men, and they would teach it to other men. We received it, we learned it. We didn't invent this, okay? See, this is the cool thing. Everything good, everything biblical is not invented. You just see it. It's all there. But we want to just pass on what was passed on to us. Because it's all about multiplication. And by the way, this is all called discipleship. Just different aspects of discipleship. So that's how it all began. Now here's the question, where do we plant churches? What do you think? Where do we plant churches? I mean, the first two questions are really easy. Where do we plant churches? Everywhere. I mean, do you know of maybe Not right next to this one or right next to Grace Community Church. You can if you're, well, you can pick the word. There's no geographical limitations. Everywhere, okay? We plant churches everywhere. And let me suggest, to plant churches, you got to reach out to people with the gospel. And we have this notion, or maybe I just have this and you don't have it. Church planting and missions, that's somewhere in the bush where you can't stand the food, you can't speak the language, you don't like the climate. Everything else, that's not really missions, right? It's not true. The first place where this starts is not when you walk out the door, it's when you walk in the door. It's at home. It's with our families. They got to understand what the church is, what it means to the Lord. And hopefully they see it in us. Then in the town where we live, in the state where we live, the nation or the world, it doesn't matter. It's everywhere, okay? It's all about church. It says in Acts 1:8, Jesus tells the disciples to stay in Jerusalem until they receive power from above to do what? Huh? To be his witnesses. It's not so much my testimony. It's not what I experienced. We bring his story, his witness to the remotest places, everywhere. It starts here and it goes everywhere. To the bush, in the rural areas, in the inner cities, urban areas, ethnic, interracial, it doesn't matter. Everywhere. To the remotest parts of the world. And you know what's so... I'm just preaching through Matthew 9. Don't worry, I'm not going to go there. But Matthew 9:37 says that the harvest doesn't say it was. What does it say? It is plentiful. Do you believe that? No, let me ask you. You can answer. When I ask questions, you can answer, okay? Do you believe that? Yes. Really? Well, you haven't really convinced me, but I'll take it, okay? What does Jesus also say? Laborers. And those are not just professionally trained laborers. That's you. Before I got to Matthew 9, I did Matthew 8, 7, 6, 5. 5 says, you are the salt. You are the light of the world. All of you, all of us, everybody who's saved, we are salt and light in this world. And the harvest is there. We just got to look up. We just got to see it. And we go where they listen. This was so helpful when I went through Matthew 7. It doesn't sound very Jesus-like when he says, don't throw your pearls before the swine, right? But it's in the context. And he says it when he sends out his disciples. He says, where they receive you, you stay. If they don't listen, move on. Because there's a harvest. Man, we got to go where the harvest is. Don't be like a pit bull biting the mailman, okay, when you're evangelizing. Well, that's how I grew up, and I had a bad conscience. You give someone the gospel, and you just keep working at it until he finally hates your guts. Right? No. Jesus tells his disciples, where they receive you, you stay. If not, shake the dust off your feet and move on. Now listen to this. This is really cool. Oh, I'm sorry, John. John is a church planter in Geneva. Can I steal your word? This is really cool. That's his word. I'm borrowing it, okay? But it is really cool. Acts 13. Here's Paul. Acts 13, 51 through 52. They go. They bring the gospel. Some believe. Some want to kill him. But they shook off the dust from their feet against them and went on to Iconium. And you know what? They didn't feel bad. They didn't have a bad conscience. And the disciples were filled with joy and with the Holy Spirit. You know why? Because they did what Jesus told them to do. They went, they preached, some received, others didn't, they moved on. Now this can be looked at geographically, but also your neighbors. And moving on doesn't mean you never talk to your neighbor again, but don't be the pit bull, okay? Wait for the moment where they want to listen. And don't waste your time. May I say that? Because that's what Jesus means in Matthew 7. There's an economy of ministering. We shouldn't waste our time and our effort on those who don't want to listen. We go to those who listen because the harvest, it's there, it's plentiful. We just pray that God will lead us there. That doesn't mean you talk to a person once and you expect him to repent and be born again. I mean, it happens. It's really cool when it does. It usually doesn't happen that way. But I guess you catch what I mean, right? Don't waste your time on those who don't want to listen. And what's really important, this works best with indigenous people. This is kind of like away from the classical missionary model. There's nothing against that. But you know what? This is big with TMAI, indigenous people in the training center, so you can hand them over. People who are in the country, they know the language, they know the culture, they're integrated in the culture, and you know what? It's usually much more cost-effective to work with those guys than to send someone from abroad. Doesn't have to be the States. Wherever you send somebody over there, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying don't do this, but this is a model that is just much more natural, much more effective. Because what are we up to do? What is the big challenge when you go to a place you don't know? We kind of take ourselves there, right? And usually we are the biggest hindrance to the ministry we want to do because we have a hard time doing what Paul is talking about in 1 Corinthians 9:19. I just read the first few verses. For though I am free from all, I have made myself a servant to all, that I might win more of them. To the Jews I became as a Jew in order to win Jews. To those under the law I became as one under the law, though not being myself under the law, that I might win those under the law. Those outside the law, he does everything. He adapts. And you know, adapting, it's not that easy, right? It's not that easy. But if you're there and you speak, you don't need to adapt. You're integrated already. So this is just when we talk geography, this makes sense. Work with the people who are already there. Train the guys that are there. That's why TMAI exists to a big part, to train local people to do local ministry, local outreach. When do we plant churches? Again, you're all here. Some are experts, some are experienced, some are interested. So when do we plant churches? Anytime, all the time. So we all walk out of here and start a church plant. Let's start when not to plant. When not to plant. Don't plant out of frustration. Oh, I've seen so many church plant, and I understand that were planted, they were frustrated, and the group left, and you know what united them? Frustration. Frustration. Frustration is not a good soil for anything good to grow. Subjective calling. You know, if you're the only one that feels called to plant a church, but no one around you, no one in your church, no one who's dear to you and knows you and loves you enough to tell you the truth, sees that too, I wouldn't follow through. I know God has blessed some of those, but I always tell guys, just because God in His grace sometimes lets something good come forth from our mistakes, that doesn't mean we should make mistakes a virtue. Okay? It's God's grace. This is really big. Romantic, adventurous notion. It's like, oh, I always dreamed about going to the mission field. This would be so cool. This would be so different, so special. And what drives it is just this dream, romantic, adventurous, but you don't really have a clue of what's coming. You're not prepared. You just think it'd be nice to do that. And this leads to the next one, unprepared. Don't go unprepared. I wouldn't sit in an airplane if I don't know the pilot isn't trained to do what he does. And I'm amazed sometimes how people entrust their lives to people who, if you would only ask a few questions, you would find out they have no experience, they're not prepared, they haven't thought about it. And people who give you this line like, oh, God will take care of it. You know what? I never worry about God taking care of it, okay? He's God. He knows what He's doing. He's always doing the right thing. But I'm sure worried if we understand what He wants us to do. And we should be prepared. And
just for the recording, I think it's cutting in and out.
Oh, the recording's this one.
Yeah, that one. Maybe it's this one.
Technology's not on my side today, but
It'd be better. So the recording will be good, but we just want to make sure that this doesn't cut out for the audio. So maybe if you hold it in your hand, that way you can wander around.
hold it in my hand.
Yeah.
So you get both.
Because there's a gate.
Oh, this is going to be really challenging. Well, I'll try, okay? I'm not a woman, okay? I can't do many things at once, so no, it's okay. Just let's hear it for all the women in here. No. May I say this? And I'm a TMS grad, and I'm eternally thankful for what I learned there. But a degree, I don't care if it's a MDiv, a THM, or if you have 3 doctorates. A degree is not being prepared and approved. That's not the same thing, okay? It's helpful. It's good to have that in your toolbox. But you need a lot more to be a church planter. And you don't need necessarily a degree to be a church planter. But the other things we're going to look at, you definitely need. And if you're not sent, because churches plant churches, that means churches send out church planters. And we don't have time to go into this, but Acts 13:1, did you know that Paul, okay? The apostle Paul served in Antioch for at least a year, maybe 2. He was recognized by the elders, and they laid hands on him and sent him out. And Paul didn't say, hey, I'm an apostle, I don't need this, okay? Well, yeah, he could have. But he didn't, because he gave us a model to follow. See, this is the good thing. It's all here. It's all in Scripture. We don't have to be creative. We don't have to be inventive. We don't have to be anything. We just got to be, what do we have to be? Faithful. That's all. It's all there. So, when do you plant? How do you want to know that? Well, when you plant it, when you're prepared. And you don't decide whether you're prepared. The church decides whether you are prepared. Are you proven? Tested. Those are the prerequisites for elders and deacons. Now, if you send out a church planter, just follow me briefly, and God blesses it, and there's a church that starts growing, what does that church need? Leadership. Where does it say that? Many places. Where does it say it explicitly? Titus 1:5, right. A church without elders is lacking. Now, here's a church, and there's no one that has elder experience. how on earth are they going to give leadership to that young church? I would say in a team of church planters, you got to have at least one guy who's not just elder qualified, but elder experienced, who can give leadership, biblical leadership to that church. If this is there, you will be sent. And when you're sent, this is really good, believe me. I was sent out by the laying on of hands, because I can tell you go out there, you have a team, there's days where you question yourself. Am I the right guy? Am I cut out for this? Is this really what God wants me to do? And it's so important to have people to fall back upon, experienced people, church people who laid hands on you, who affirmed, who confirmed it, who accompany you, who give advice, who you're accountable to. I have numerous friends. You know, I don't have the answers to everything. And I call them. I say, so, hey, this is what we encountered. What would you do? What's your advice? You'd be a fool to neglect that. Seriously. And forgive me for misquoting this, but like apples of gold in a setting of silver is a church plant in right circumstances. Those are right circumstances. You know, the idea, the notion, the passion to go plant, it's a good thing. But plan it, prepare. Wait until you're tested and proven and sent. And go out with church in the back, because churches plant churches. Churches accompany church plants. It's like having children, right? And I'm a father of 6. My children, well, they don't always realize it. But later they do. They're happy there was a dad and a mom. So you're sending church. That's like your papa and your mama. Who wants to grow up an orphan? You want to grow up an orphan? You want to be an orphan church? I don't want to. The Bible doesn't want that. So, another aspect of when do we do this? Now. Because the fields are ready for harvest. Another time aspect, how long do we do it? Until he returns. I beg you, I hope there's none of you who caught this deadly, really dangerous virus, and I'm not talking about COVID. I mean, have you ever heard of the end time blues? Oh, it's end times, you know, and it's really bad. So we better just sit back and wait for Jesus to come back and don't do anything. You know, it's all so bad. It's such a you know that we tend to think of the good old times, right? You know when they ended? Genesis 3. Well, think about it. 4 people. 1 brother. What does he do? He kills his brother. Would you call that good old times? And then you just go a few chapters further, chapter 6. The intentions of the human heart were evil all day long. You know, the world's not a good place. Never has been. Never has been. So until he returns, I don't care what's happening around us. That doesn't change the mission. Until he returns, we do what he has called to, because he loved the church. Okay? He gave himself up for the church, Ephesians 5. He builds his, it's not us. We're just co-workers, hopefully, not hindering what he plans to do. He builds his church. And he comes back for his church. He will come back and take us where he is, because he wants to have fellowship with us. And until he returns, and he hasn't returned yet, right? Otherwise, we're all in trouble. Because either we missed it completely, or we have to go through the tribulation, and both thoughts are not really thrilling, okay? But anyway, we're not going to get into eschatology here. Until he returns, we are called to pray and live according to what Matthew 6, 9 to 10 says. What does it say there? What are we to be all about? Glorify His name, do His will, and work on His kingdom. Quite often, we're good at building our own reputation, our own name. We're very happy if everything goes according to my will. I mean, we wouldn't say that. That sounds very spiritual, right? But quite often, that's what it is. And we like to build our own paradise here on earth and don't really care much about His kingdom. And you know, Jesus instructs the disciples to pray for this. And praying is good, but praying isn't enough. Because when you pray for this, you also got to act in faith upon what you just prayed on. So this is a dangerous prayer. When you pray this, you say, Lord, my life is yours. That's what we say. So now, how, or rather who? How much time do I have? That's 12:30. Wow, that's pretty cool. How, or as I already mentioned, who? Who? Here's the two big misconceptions out there, and they have devastating and frustrating consequences for man, for the church planters, for the poor victims of those men who follow these wrong ideas. And consequently, this will, and this is the worst part, it will dishonor God if we don't understand two things. Misconception number one, it is not, church planting is not predominantly about method. It's not. And it's not about money either. We need money, okay? And we got to have a plan. But this, people think, oh, if I have the right method, it'll work. Or if I have enough money, it will work. They think money is the hindrance to their church planting endeavors. No. Here's the real thing. It's all about man. You need the right man. Plural, not a right man, a team. You need a number, at least two, preferably three, core team. That's what you need. Because I can tell you one thing. The right man, the man of God, will do or take the right approach because they listen to God. The right man will put their trust in God, even to provide whatever resources they need. But if you don't have the right man, you have nothing. So it's not so much about the who, because the how. If the who is clear, if you have the right person, the how will fall into place, not by itself, but because they go to the only source that teaches us how to do church planting. And that's Jesus Himself and His Word, and it's all there. One verse that really I go to over and over again, 2 Chronicles 16:9. Listen to this. For the eyes of the Lord move to and fro throughout the earth, that He may strongly support those whose heart is completely His. So the power is not the method, it's not the money, it's not even you or me. He will strongly support His power. It's His doing through us. He's just looking for man that say, I love you, I obey you, I trust you. If you have the right man, oh, that's better than, I don't know, I've never been to Vegas and a casino, but I don't know, what's the biggest thing you can get there? A jackpot or whatever. If you win all the jackpots, if you win everything, it's nothing. It's nothing to the right man. It's all about man. So how do we get the right man? You test them. You filter them. The workshops that we do in Germany, and we'll get to it, you don't just sign up for it. And it's not a seminar, it's a workshop. You know why? Because you got to work. Seminar sounds like, oh yeah, I'm going to listen. If I like it, cool. If not, who cares? They should have called this a workshop. Don't walk out of here thinking, I don't care. You get your hands dirty. You got to work. So we have a questionnaire. And when we did the first workshop and I sent out that questionnaire and I asked the guys when they came in, so what do you think? I said, don't tell me what I want to hear. What did you think? They were irritated in a good sense, they found out after a while. Because there's questions in that questionnaire about their theology. That's the easy part, okay? I want to know where you're at. What do you believe? What's your experience? I mean, if you haven't had any exposure to church planting, if you haven't had a taste, if you haven't been involved, I mean, you read about it, that's cool. But I'm not going to get in the plane again with a pilot who read about, well, yeah, you're like, yeah, I wouldn't either. But you know how often we get involved with man? They have no clue. This is not talking bad about them or looking down on them, but are they experienced? I want to know, okay, so what have you done so far? You know, in Switzerland, where I come from, my youngest son, he's 14, he finishes school. They go to school 9 years and they do apprenticeship. That means they work on the job for 3 or 4 days and one day they get vocational training. So when they're done, they don't know everything, but they have an idea of what they're doing. That's how you become a mechanic, a pilot. My son's going to be a nurse. You learn, right? So what's your experience? How are you tucked into church life? Look, if you're not a church man, you're not a church planter. You don't have an idea of you don't even know what you're doing. And I want to know whether you're in leadership or if you're not, does your leadership know about you thinking about church planting? If not, why not? See, it's about church. And if the church is not involved, what? I mean, it doesn't mean they're completely disqualified, but a lot of them, they're like, ooh, yeah, those were some good questions. Good questions can be really helpful because you're not telling them what they don't know, they realize it themselves. Do you pray for this? Are you praying for people to get saved? You want to start a church plant? You plan on people getting saved, right? Do you pray for people to get saved? Do you pray for this church plant? How long have you been praying for this church plant? I mean, I can't go through all the questions, but it's just to make them think and get a grip of, oh, because you know what? Any ministry is intimidating because we don't stand before man at the end of the day who tell us, oh, you did a good job or not. We're all going to be standing in front of God. And he will evaluate. So you better think about those things. You better go to the Lord in prayer. You better gain some experience. Why do you want to go out and plant churches and save people if you haven't even reached out to a single person in your whole life? But you know how many guys with this romantic, adventurous notion want to go out and plant churches or be missionaries, but they've done none of that at home? Ask them those questions. It's for their benefit and the benefit of the people they want to go minister to. What are you willing to invest? What's your commitment? Do you think this is cool and if it doesn't work, I go home? You know what the average lifespan of a missionary on the field is? Huh? 12? 3 to 5 years. Most of them return after 3 to 5 years. You go there, the honeymoon's over, it's hard, it doesn't work, whatever comes your way, you pack up your bags, you go home. What a test. You know, the people where you're at, they see this. And you know what they think? They think those guys that come over with the so-called best message there is, they don't believe it themselves. Because if they would, they wouldn't just run and go home to mama. This is serious stuff. Are you committed? How committed? What are you willing to invest? And I know those are things, those are processes, they grow. But if there's not some foundation to build on, I'm not saying you're disqualified for life, but you better go back and go over the books and just get ready if that's what you really want or if that's what God has really called you to do. Are you a team player? I'm telling you. If you're not a team player, you're just dangerous. You might be well trained. People who are not team players, I stay away from them. They're like, it's a disaster waiting to happen because they're all about themselves. But you know, church in essence is not about me. It's a corporate entity. It's not about me. And if you have guys planting the church, kind of influencing the DNA of a church, and they're all about themselves, the whole church will be all about themselves. And you know what? That's not a church. That's not what we read in the New Testament. And believe it or not, most problems on the field are not theological in nature. Even though we like to portray it as theological, it's relational. We don't get along. If the team doesn't get along, if mom and dad don't get along, you can read all the child-rearing books you want. See, those principles are not new. They apply across the board. You need a team. And you need a team. A team is not a group of men. A group of men is a group of men. A team is we know each other, we trust each other, we got each other's back. We don't assume we have the same perspective. We talked about it, we laid it on the table, we looked each other in the eyes and said, yes, that's what we are all about. And that's what we want to do. It's kind of like getting married, for good or for worse, because they'll both come. There's good times and there's other times. Make no mistake. Team. Now, Jesus builds his church according to his eternal, perfect plan. And that plan is not found in any book. There's good books, they're helpful. I'll recommend a few at the end. But the blueprint is in the Bible. One of the books we read, I'm teaching expository preaching, and Hendricks has this sentence, and I just keep going back to it over and over again. He says, you know what's the difference between a good and an excellent Bible student? You know what it is? The excellent one sees more. It's all, you just got to see it. That's why we pray, Lord, open my eyes that I may see the wonders in your law. Lord, open my eyes that I may see your plan for your church. We got to pray about this. It's all there. This is the good. It's all there. You just got to see it. Take time. Work through it. Prepare. Get your things together. And he builds it through his word, by the power of his Spirit, with his man, plural. He uses man. See, the first thing that Jesus did when he came and he started his public ministry, he preached to all of them, right? And then he had 500, and then he had 70, and then he had 12. And out of the 12, he had 3 that he invested most into. So you look for those men. I'm telling you, that's what I look. I mean, we'll minister to all, but most of my time goes to those key men, those 2 Timothy 2:2 men. And you know what's the qualification of those 2 Timothy 2:2 men? What does it say? There's two things. Able and faithful. Faithful is the most important one. Able, you know, God has gifted us however He pleased. Sometimes I think some of them stood in the first row and raised their hand every time He was passing out gifts. They got it all, you know. Well, that's good. I'm happy for them. But you're able to do this. I'm able to do this. That's not, the thing is not what we bring to the table. The thing is just, are you faithful with what God wants you to be faithful with what He's given you, not with what He's not given you. Faithful, able to listen, able to live according to what He says. It's men that love Him, and they love the sheep, the lost sheep, and the sheep in the church. Because that's what Jesus came to save the lost, remember? And when they're saved, so that they're sanctified, that's all we do. Loving Him means obeying Him. John 14:15, and then He repeats it. This is the definition of love. You know, there's so many people out there, oh, I love Jesus. What does that mean? It's very simple, one word. What does it mean to love Jesus? Obey. This is straight out the mouth of Jesus. He says, and it's not a command, it's a statement. He just states this. He says, this is the mark of a Jesus lover. He says, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. You want to hear a funny story? My kids, when they leave home, or I drive them to the train station, quite often when we say goodbye, they say, love you. I say, really? Then keep my commandments. You can ask my kids. They got the drill down, okay? And we laugh, but there's truth to it. There's truth to it. It means we trust Him. Trust, you know when you need to trust somebody? When there's no reason to follow through with what he just said, because that doesn't make sense. You don't need to trust somebody if it's logically making sense to you. Whom do you trust? Method, money, yourself, your power, your ingenuity, your whatever? Or do we trust Him? And if we love Him and obey Him and trust Him, we can't but pray to Him. And not just to come with the Christmas list and say what we want, but to tell Him how much we love Him. And to ask Him that He will help us to obey Him and trust Him, because you did it and I did it. We didn't trust Him, okay? He knows. He doesn't drop us like a hot potato. But let's go to Him. That's the kind of man. Because it's all about Him. Romans 11, it's all from Him, through Him, to Him. To Him be the glory. Not us. If there's church plants that flourish, it's because of Him. It's for Him. It's through Him. It's to Him. It's not about us. It's about Him. It's His church. Essentials and basics, just a brief run through: theology, philosophy, chemistry. I'm good with languages, but not with science. So in chemistry, I remember one thing. If you mix two substances, sometimes the outcome is what it's supposed to be. Sometimes what happens? Boom, right? It blows up. Chemistry is very important. And I know when I entered full-time ministry, which actually is a really stupid word. Did you know that? Are you a part-time Christian? I hope not. Okay, so now that we got that clear, let me go back to theology. The theology shapes and drives everything. But then we might have the same theology, but the philosophy, how do we live this out? And even if you don't know that you have a philosophy, you still have one. This is very important in the preparatory stage, in the core team, that you understand, that you work through, that you take time. What do we really believe? And how does what we believe influence what we do? How is this going to define our church life? And then there's chemistry, and in chemistry you either have explosion or cohesion, okay? Either it brings things together and something good comes from the mix, or it'll blow up. Now in heaven, we all get along perfectly. But this is not heaven. So we treat each other nicely. And one of the things, I learned many things from you, Steve, but one thing, all the guys at our church, they all know it. Let them leave well. Don't make a big fuss. If there's people, there's brothers in heaven that see some theological things differently than you and me and have a different philosophy. But you know what? They're brothers. And if they're brothers, we treat them in a brotherly way. We don't talk bad about them. We don't post things about them. We don't write articles or who cares what. Let them leave well. Acknowledge, yeah, okay, you're a brother, and us being together will not lead to cohesion, but to an explosion. And it's because we're all sinners. There's nothing to be proud about. It's not one is right and the other one's wrong. We live in a fallen world, and for this reason, it doesn't work. And the best thing we can do is leave well, and you go this way, and we go this way, and we pray for each other, and not imprecatory psalms, okay? Well, have you never been tempted to pray those? So, what makes an efficient team? I hope we can make this available to you because I don't have time to go through all of this. It's theology. What determines what we do? It's philosophy. How do we live? What we believe as a church? You know, you talk to people, oh, we all agree. And then something comes up and you find out, oh, I didn't think you take that stand on this. Now, you can't clarify everything, but there's a lot of things. Let me just give you one example. And it's not about who's right or what's marriage and divorce, remarriage. Very emotional thing. The culture we live in, it's not a question whether we're going to be confronted with this, but just when and what are the circumstances. So what are you going to do? I'm telling you, that's just me. You got to figure this out in your team, okay? I would never join a church and be in leadership where we don't agree on how we deal with this. And I have very good friends that have a different view than I have, and we will stay very good friends. And this might sound really strange, as long as we don't serve in leadership together in the same church. This is just an example. This will come, and there's things that have the potential to blow up the whole church. This is definitely one of them. And if you as leadership or eldership are not united on this one, and I'm not going to tell you where I'm at or whatever, it doesn't matter. You just got to be united on this one. You're sitting on a bomb waiting to explode, I would say. And then there's chemistry and unity. And you know, some of the last words that Jesus prays is for unity. And you know what kind of unity? The way I am one, he's praying to the Father, the unity that I have with you and you with me. That's pretty united, huh? And you know, we can have unity even if we don't agree, because we are united on not splitting the church, on not arguing, on not talking bad about each other. Unity comes in different forms. Unity has the purpose to glorify God, to work for the best of all the people in the church, And believe me, unity is not just so you feel good or I feel good. Unity, in this context, Jesus says, if you're not united, people will not believe that the Father sent me. Unity and the way we deal with each other in the church, let me tell you, is the most powerful evangelistic tool you have. Because everybody sees it. At the beginning of the upper room discourse, Jesus says, by the love you have, everybody will recognize that you are my disciples. So if we bite and devour each other, as it says in Galatians 5, people will also think something about us. And rightly so. And look, brothers, sisters, even though we're not always united in theology, we got to have the mind of Christ. And the mind of Christ, as it says in Philippians 2:5, is a mind of humility and servanthood, and it's not about me. This is a DNA of the church. If you don't have this together, not perfect, but if you can't say, that's who we are, that's what we want to do, that's what we aspire, that's our goals and values, God in His grace can still bless your church plant. But I would propose it's better to be prepared. So here's some more passages underlining what I said here. The Pauline cycle, it's out of a book by Hesselgrave. I'll show it to you at the end. Very helpful. Don't have, yes?
Just one slide. Can you go back
One slide back?
Thank you.
Tell me when you're done. We're good?
Yes, sir.
Sure? Really? Yeah.
I know it's fat, but like.
Fat? Oh, yeah. It means you gotta love food, okay? No, fat. Oh, I'm glad you asked. This is what I'm looking for in those men who I'm going to pour in most of my time. Fat. It stands for faithful, available, and teachable. Doesn't seem like much, but I'm telling you, you find a guy who's faithful. You can count on him. You know, you tell him something, it doesn't matter if it's big or small. You don't always have in the back of your mind, oh man, I hope he did it. I hope he looked after it. I hope he took care of it. Available. You know, we're all so super busy. There's people, I didn't even call them because I don't want to put them in a bad position of having to say no again. Do you cut time out of your life? Do you maybe talk to your boss and work only 80%, trusting the Lord that you will not starve to death? Because you won't. Are you available? If you don't have time, preparation, planning needs time. Experience, working needs time. Available and teachable. If you have a, oh, I know it all kind of guy, well, first of all, they don't exist. Second of all, they're a pain in the neck, okay? You have one of those guys, forget unity. He's always right. Yeah, it always has to be his way. And none of us knows everything, okay? We need each other. Teachable. And even if you're the key guy in the planting, that doesn't mean you're not supposed to be teachable. We listen when the word says something. It doesn't matter if it's my little boy telling you this, or Paul Washer, or Conrad Mbebe, or John MacArthur. It doesn't matter who says it. It matters, does it come from the Bible or not? That's it. And if the Bible says it, I pray to God that I'll be a teachable guy. Even if it means sacrificing a conviction or a tradition that was very dear to me. We got to be, you know what the word disciple means in essence? It's a learner and a follower. That's what it means to be a disciple. We learn, not just to know, but in order to follow according to what we just learned. Can I go on? Good. So the Pauline cycle, book by Hesselgrave, I get it, I can highly recommend it. Pay attention that before the cycle begins, that's when you send out the missionary or the church planter. But most of the work is done prior to this, okay? And if you don't do this, if you neglect this, you will most likely pay very dearly for it, and not just you, but the people you want to serve to as well. So certain things have to be worked out in advance. Others run and keep on running simultaneously. They get refined, but you got to have a basic concept, and I'll get to it, what that means. Pre-Pauline cycle, you got to have a team. You got to have a team. And you don't have a team, you wait until there is a team. You wait. That's all there's to it. Your statement of faith, you better have it very detailed, clearly written out, gone through with your core group, and agree and look each other in the eye and say, yes, that's our statement of faith. All those things, a general philosophy of ministry. And you know, it grows as the church grows, and as you learn things, you adapt, you refine. Your goals and values, put them on paper. Why wouldn't you put them on paper? You know why? Because you don't know what they are. Or because you don't want to be held accountable to what you put on your papers. But I would say put it on paper. Doesn't mean it's in concrete, but it's on paper. And it is very concrete when you have it on paper. Membership. Say, oh, but I haven't read the word membership in the Bible. Yeah, you don't read Trinity in the Bible either, okay? There's a few words, but the concept of membership, of being committed, but if I commit, I got to know what I commit to. So I want to, see, people sometimes come to me, students come to me, they say, what about this school? What about this church? You know what's the first thing I do if I don't know them? I look for their statement of faith. If they don't have one, it tells a huge story. I want to see, who are you? What do you believe? Where are you going? How am I going to commit to something if I don't know what I'm committing to? That's like prearranged marriage. Say, okay, marry her. Who would want to do that? Or you marry this guy, never seen him, never talked to him, no clue who he is. That's not how we roll. Huh? Some places, yeah, but if you would have a choice, would you want to go for that one? I wouldn't. So the process of a church plant. You can't read this, that's okay. Because it's here. You need a locomotive. You need one guy who says, that's my baby. Whatever it takes, I'm committed to this. It's like a locomotive on a train. If there's no locomotive on a train, it will do two things. Either it won't go anywhere, or if it does, it goes downhill. But it won't go the direction you want it to go. So you need leadership. You need a founding team. You need a team. Within the team, you need one locomotive, at least one. You need a core group with a pioneer mentality. You know why? Because things don't work and they go wrong, just like here, okay? And you need people who look for solutions and don't say, oh, we have a problem here and there. Yeah, I know. I know. So what's the solution? We put on our website when we started, and the website was just one thing. We said, if you don't have a pioneering spirit, you won't be happy here. If you think you come here and everything, you know, we got 10 Sunday school classes and this youth program and this and blah, 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 blah. No, it's a church plant, okay? You know, and a lot of people want new churches, but they're not willing to price to build one. They come when it's all done. And then you politely say, no. No, well, maybe you do. Then the interested and the curious come, okay? Some will come and go. That's okay. Don't cry over it. Trust the Lord that He, as it says in Acts, adds to the church as He pleases. So, I'm telling you, I never asked anybody to come join our church. What do I know? You might think, oh, that's the guy we need. And then he comes, you're like, oh, why did I ask him to come? Trust the Lord. Why should he not trust the Lord? Pray for the guy to come. It's his church, right? Then, this is not a biblical term, but one we go to quite often. Even though we don't speak English in my neck of the woods, we learned that from Steve. When you have a small group, you're not a church. You're a glorified Bible study. I like that term, you know. It's a little bit more than a Bible study, but you don't have a multitude of elders yet. You don't have deacons. You don't function. You're still lacking things. It's okay. That doesn't mean there's no value to it, but it's not a church. Then you have a committed group. Then the church plant is launched. Then there's growth. And there's evangelism and transfer growth. Transfer growth is okay because there's a lot of churches out there you wouldn't want to go to, and me either, right? And they're looking for a new church to go to. And if you have a good membership process, it's okay because you can filter through. One of the questions we ask people, why do you want to come to our church? And I said, that doesn't mean we don't want you. There's so many churches. What draws you to our church? Why do you come here? They don't have an answer, so I go back and think about it. And then, when the church is really grown, it's like us adults. Most of us, we marry and we have babies, right? So when the church plant is mature, it'll reproduce. Churches have baby churches. Huh? Churches plant churches. There's nothing radically new. It's very biblical. That's how it's all, it's amazing how things kind of go off the radar. We all know, we all agree to, but they still go off the radar. So I'm not telling you anything new. You know why? Because it's from the Bible. But I just hope it'll go back on your radar and it'll go to the core of your radar, and that God will raise church planters, form teams, that this will come to place. And then, you should be very concrete about it. What do we want? What are some results and goals? What are we shooting for? What are the roles and responsibilities? Don't just assume everybody knows what to do and how to do it, and then you're like, what? You didn't do this? Just communicate. You can't over-communicate, okay? Talk to each other. Roles and responsibilities. Resources and procedures. How do we use what we have to reach the goals that we defined, to live up to the values that we defined? How do we do this? And then look at it. Are we really doing what we're supposed to do? Because sometimes, we get all caught up. We're working, we're plugging away, we're in a routine, and we're busy. But busy doesn't mean doing the right thing. So you got to stop every once in a while, step back, look at what your statement of faith, look at your core values and say, hey, are we doing this? Are we doing this? And you know what? If you don't have it on paper, you don't even know what you're set out to do. Don't confuse means with the mission. There's the mission, there's means, and there's the motivation. The mission is make disciples. Matthew 28. This all happens in and through the church. That's the mission. The means, there's lots of means. Finances, means. The church itself is actually a means to make disciples because the command is make disciples. Yes, they're part of the church. The church building is a means. The people you training is a means. Those are good and important things, but you know what? It's not the mission. Jesus made it clear what the mission is. Make disciples. Then he made clear in which context this happens, but we really got to be careful not to play church, but make disciples. That also means you teach them to obey everything I commanded you. So you bring them to faith and you bring them to sanctification once they're saved. The means, whatever they are, God provides. Matthew 6, God says, what are you worried about? This and this. And what's his argument? You have a Father in heaven. You know, my kids don't worry if there's gas in the tank, if the bills are paid. Well, eventually they don't worry about whether we have food, but as they grow older, they worry about, do we have enough protein? You know, I have boys that they think you can live off protein alone. It's okay. It'll probably pass. Man are a means to make disciples. Doesn't sound, we don't want to be, let's say we're a tool in the hands of God. That sounds better, right? The motivation, he's there. He's there. He's with us. He has all the power. Matthew 28. And it's the love of God that controls us, that drives us to do this. That's the core motivation. Church planting workshop in Berlin. What we learned, we passed on. We learned it in an English context, in a European context. And then we started doing this in a German context with a German guy, German-speaking people from all over Europe. We started this in April. When I go back in April, we'll have number 2. The guys are coming back. Some churches have already started. Some are somewhere else in the Pauline cycle process. But man, what a blessing. And there's hope. Out of the good-looking, you know, the group of good-looking guys that I showed you at the beginning, churches were planted. Eckstein, inner city of Berlin. Leuchtturm, rural area of Berlin. Hope and Light, out in the sticks where there's more cows than people living in the town, okay, that I live in. Same principles, different context, biblical. We have our church, they love to eat. You know why? We're going to eat here in a minute too. Food and fellowship go together well. You won't have a lot of fellowship if you don't feed them. So we also have a saying, no meeting without eating. You know, it's just, they just kind of stick around longer, you know. And a lot of things happen just talking. So I hope you'll forgive me. Here's the helpful resources. Those are the 2 books. Here's the website, LifeGate Worldwide. As you go out, there's a stand. Steve will be there. Maybe you 3 can stand up. Those are, oh, you can stand up. Oh, Jaw is there. Oh, there's more. There's 5 guys. I'm sorry. I got to wear my glasses. Steve's located in Minnesota. That's where it's much colder than here. You think this is cold, go where Steve is. This is cold, okay? He told me he has to leave a day early because there's a snowstorm. Talk to those guys, get their material, get in contact if you really think about church planting, whether it be in the States or worldwide, as it says, LifeGate Worldwide. EPTC, I have brochures up here about the training of man, about church planting, about what's going on. Feel free to get those and get an idea of what's happening, not just in Switzerland or Germany, but in Europe. EPTC stands for European Bible Training Center. And TMAI, well, that's kind of like where you all signed up. I'm sorry, we were supposed to have time for questions. But it's the technology, you know, it ate all my time away. And you guys were all late, okay? You want to train your people to be on time when you start a church plant right from the start. No, we're still here. Talk to us, approach us. We'd love to talk to you. And thank you for your time here. Thank you.